When I first started, I was incredibly lucky to be a developer in a team that was doing things differently. I don't actually see creativity and structure as opposing forces. Creativity actually thrives best when there is structure, when there are constraints. Design, it's so expansive, so ever evolving. It's challenging me intellectually and emotionally, but I don't know if it's the final destination. I never see career shifts as starting over. Every role, every experience, it's all part of a story I'm telling about the kind of leader I want to be. I create a safe space for my team to solve real problems, to not be afraid to try things and fail. My approach has always remained the same, which is curiosity first and expertise second.
Hey everyone, welcome to Design Hack Podcast. Today we have another special podcast for you. Uh, Really liking the response that you guys giving to the podcast and really looking forward to pushing more out sooner. But let's talk about today's guest. She's really amazing. She is a design and product leader with a decade of almost a decade more of experience in different industries like banking, telecommunication. We have Mojan with us. She is going to talk about her journey, insights with different industries, different takes, and how she has been to where she are and what she sees the future of UX could look like. Let's get her on stage and let's get the podcast started. Hey Mo, how are you? How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks.
Awesome. So let's start with a bit of your introduction for the audience out there.
Perfect. Well, my name is Moj. I am a leader in the product design space, and yeah, looking forward to being here.
Really amazing. Awesome. Let's start with your overall background. So you have such a non-linear journey, like from software development to marketing and now leading kind of design at a major bank in Canada. Can you kind of take us through that transition and what prompted each of those shifts?
Sure. Yeah, I've had quite a winding career path. When I first started, I was incredibly lucky to be a developer in a team that was doing things differently. Honestly, it was such a special team. We were called the Quick Wins team. And I was able to sit right next to the people that were going to be using the tools that I was building, like literally sitting right next to each other. And that proximity was amazing. Like I could really firsthand like see what all of their pain points were, what all of their frustrations were, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, but also their response to what I was putting in front of them. Um, it was something so special. Like I felt like I wasn't code writing like lines of code. I was literally like iterating something live with their feedback. But I think like the most pivotal part of that role, or like the biggest like shift in my career, happened when I saw that their perceptions of technology or how they saw technology shifted. You know, at first they were skeptical, maybe even threatened by automation. But eventually, like they were coming to me with ideas. Like they would come to me with like, I'm constantly copying and pasting the same thing. Can't you just automate that for me? And that was such a powerful moment for me to see that shift in thinking. And that's when I realized I don't want to build systems. I want to understand people. I want to work with people. I want to know what drives behavior, how perceptions change, how mindsets evolve. And that's when I made a bold move. I left tech and I became a manager at a call center. And that role really confirmed for me just how much I love working with people. I love supporting people and helping them grow and succeed. But it also made me realize that the kind of leader I wanted to become, I needed to become a better communicator. I wanted to learn how to rally people around a vision and inspire them. And I wanted to be someone who like could connect ideas to impact. And so I decided to go to school and get my master's in communication and culture. And during that time, I held a variety of roles in corporate communications and marketing. And, you know, those roles, like, they really taught me how to tell powerful stories and position ideas and, like, bring the voice of the client to work. And eventually, all of these threads, you know, tech, people, leadership, storytelling, it just kind of naturally led me to product design leadership. And I really feel like this is where all of my experiences truly like converge. Like I get to be creative, but I also get to be analytical. I get to be human centered. I get to be strategic. So yeah, that's sort of been like my career path. I don't think that my career story is complete. I feel like I'm still evolving. Like I'm still on that path of becoming a more impactful leader. And I don't think I'm done shifting yet. Like I'm always kind of thinking, what do I need to do next? Maybe like something more on the business side. We'll see.
That is really interesting, and I think the space that you are at, where you are able to kind of get to do a bunch of mix of things, and you are able to do something you really like. And one thing that I think I really learned from you is how you pointed out that that even being at this space as a leader, you're still figuring out what's next, right? Still figuring out either that be business, you don't know, right? And you're still experimenting and you're still figuring out. That is something I think a big take for me, and I think personally for a lot of people who would be watching, that even when you are at a really big scale, you have been in the industry for so long, you still think what's next, right? That is really
Yeah.
interesting. Awesome. So let's talk about more towards the next question. So a lot of people feel that they need to start over when switching fields,
Mm.
and you are thinking of what's next. Like how did you kind of carry your past skills forward with each transitions, and how did that shape your edge as a design leader?
Such a good question. I, you know, I've had all these shifts, but I never see career shifts as starting over. I really think I see them as building out. Like I think when I think back, I think every role, every experience I've had, everything I've done, even like the education, various different, you know, courses and education that I've had, it's all really part of a story that I'm telling about the kind of leader I want to be. And so I think for me, like the if I look at my career as a story, like the main storyline really is people leadership. And so moving from tech to marketing to design, like I don't think I've made those moves because I was walking away from something. Like I wasn't necessarily walking away from tech. I wasn't walking away from marketing. But more I was like moving toward becoming a more impactful leader, if that makes sense. You know, my analytical skills, like this structured thinking that I have from like my days in tech, I still use those skills today. Same with like, you know, everything I've learned in marketing and so on. So I think having said all of that, like what's shaped my edge as a design leader is the ability then to zoom in and out of that systems thinking and stories, um, and toggling between voice of the customer, but also practical and, feasibility, and like the juxtaposition of those two things together, I think is my edge and part of my story.
That is really interesting. I think how you said you have always tried to strike that balance between voice of the customer and being practical and making sure that practical can be different for everybody else. Like can be a business goal, uh, can be something else like just testing it, different goals, right? That is really interesting to see. And I think I have a follow up question around this space, but more on your transition from technical to more of a creative strategic role. So, what was one of your biggest mindset shifts you had to make when kind of moving from a technical role to more of a creative strategic role?
I think you're going to see a common thread in my answers. I don't actually see creativity and like structure and like analytical thinking and all of that. Like this, I don't necessarily see them as two opposing forces. Like I don't think like, you have to make this like big shift from one to the other. What I have learned throughout my career is creativity actually like thrives best when there is structure sometimes in place, and when there are constraints. And on the other hand, also like strategy isn't just all about like analysis either, right? It's about like context, timing, like telling the right story. It's like, in my job right now, I'm thinking a lot about metrics and analytics and measuring the impact of our designs and things like that. And I think like two people can look at the same set of data and interpret it differently and tell a different story around it, right? Like these it's the structures, the sort of like the structure, we look at the data, the constraints that we kind of like put around it, as well as the context and the story that kind of like give it meaning. So I don't know. I don't think I've had to necessarily make a big shift. I feel like the two work really complementary together, more than you think.
No, that is interesting, and I think that is why we also see a bigger shift of people from like engineering background, let's say, to like a UX or product background, because I feel if
Yeah,
you have that knack of storytelling, creativity, if you have a little bit of interest, you try to kind of evolve that and you kind of find a mix of that with the technical knowledge that you have to scope or kind of shape what your future looks like in your career ladder, right? Uh, that is
that is
definitely
such a good
interesting.
point. Yeah, like when I look around me, I see so many people with engineering degrees, computer science degrees, and they're all designers now, and they're amazing designers. Yeah, I think that's such a good point.
Awesome. So basically, I think that is really interesting to see as well, that how people shift in that zone from that technical to, and I think that has been a bigger leap of faith, also because companies have seen the value of design, uh, and in the last past decade, especially, how UX blew up, how design got a seat at the table, and that impact that they can see in the long term, right? That is definitely an interesting take. Let's go forward to kind of the next question that I have is more
Mm-hmm.
around what was there like a defining moment where you knew like design is where you are meant to be, and how did you navigate that pivot, especially because you have always worked in very high stake environment?
Hmm. Has there been that single moment? I don't know. That what I was telling you earlier about my career and when I was a developer, I know exactly that day. Like I can picture it in my mind when I had that big moment where I was thinking, okay, I don't want to be a developer. I want to work with people. I don't know that I have had that single, like, this is it moment necessarily in design. And I actually think that maybe it's important to like say that out loud. Like for me, I think I see my career as a journey. I think design is the current chapter in that, in that journey. It's still evolving. Right now, it's where I have found the most alignment, like between how I think, how I lead, how I want to make impact. I found that in design right now. So that's good. I like that. What's kept me in design at the moment, I think, is because it's so um, expansive. It's so ever evolving. There is still, I think, a lot to learn. Um, it's like really deepened my understanding of problem solving, looking at things from different angles. I feel so much closer, to clients. So all of that to say, it's challenging me, like, intellectually and emotionally right now, but I don't know if it's the final decision, like the final destination for me necessarily. So it is an amazing space to be in, I think, for me right now, where I am in my career. I think it's so multidisciplinary. Um, you continue to learn, right? And you will know when this chapter is coming to an end, and you're ready to kind of move on. I haven't reached that yet, but I know it's coming.
No,
Yeah.
makes sense. Do you also see that there is a destination, or like is it always evolving?
I think knowing myself, like knowing at the path that I've been on, I'll probably always be evolving. Like, I'm always thinking, what do I want from my job? How can I become, a better leader? Like right now, I'm really exploring. Like, maybe I need to get a little closer. Like, what's missing in my path so far? I have the tech, I have the marketing, I have the design, but there's something glaring that's something big that's missing, the business and the financials. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I need that to kind of like complete the story, and I'm sure when I'm there's going to be something else, right? So maybe part of it is that's just the kind of person I am. I love like learning, I love evolving. So yeah, maybe for me there isn't a destination. I don't know. But also, like, I think like the world around us is evolving. Like when I was in school and I was studying computer science, this field of UX wasn't even what it is today. Like, it wasn't even an option for me then after graduation to go into a role like this. So I think given that the world around us also keeps changing, probably all of us need to keep on keep on evolving, and keep our stories going.
Interesting. No, makes sense. And I think, especially in the past 2 to 3 years, I've seen it evolve, change every single moment, and
Mhm.
you don't know what's coming next. Like everything is up, down, here, there, and you have to be upkeep with everything. And I think right now it's very difficult to see what's next. I think, or
Mhm.
it's difficult to keep up with what will be the next, because like I even would call it like magical things are happening which we would have never dreamt of.
Yeah.
And if we ever think of something like this, we actually don't know what's going to happen next, right?
Yeah.
So that is definitely interesting. What would be your advice actually, if somebody would be listening and this is evolving too much, how do they
Mhm.
keep up?
Oh, that is such a great question. Something I've been thinking about a lot myself because, of course, there's Gen AI are all around us. We're all hearing about all these things, Gen AI will do. And I've been thinking a lot, especially as a leader, about innovation. And, I'm in like the fintech space, and like, how do we keep up and how do we keep innovating? I think what I have zoomed in on as a leader, especially, is that innovation, I don't think, is necessarily about chasing that next big shiny thing. Because to your point, there's always a new big shiny thing, right? I think it's about making sure that I create the space, a safe space for my team to solve like real problems, to like not be afraid to try things and fail, and like all of that stuff is what having a space where teams can do that is what helps us keep innovating. So like I'm thinking a lot about sorry, psychologically safe teams and how to like create that environment. And if I was a team member, like this is a leader perspective, but if I was a team member, I would continue to be curious, not to be afraid of new technologies, right? But going back to my earlier story of those team members that were kind of like, I don't know about this. This is automating everything away, to then like really understanding it and using it to make their work better. I think as a team member, my advice would be to be curious and experiment, and focus on solving the real problem, like not being distracted by the big shiny thing, but staying human centered, client centric, all of that stuff. And I think as designers, we're all really good at that, always asking like, what's the real problem here? So I would say staying the course on that.
Interesting. I think I really like the end point that you said, that staying to the core that you really are good at. And I think I would even say, like, my take with AI, especially, that people ask me if AI is gonna take over things or not. Very honestly, it has taken over. It is taking over, and it will take over.
Hmm.
If we agree to it or not, it's gonna evolve. It's not
Hmm.
at its best right now, but it will be maybe in 1 year, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years. We don't know. Maybe in 1 month. Really
Yeah.
don't know. But my take is emotional quotient and like emotionally intelligent AI is a little far, or at least we are very good at. We are very good at learning cues. We are very good at understanding human behavior. Because we have been human since we are born. We have seen humans around us. Everybody
Hmm.
has different experiences. And I think that is what, like, it's very, like, there's always a limitation to the context that you can give to AI. And I feel humans can bring that emotional side of stuff. And even so, I was reading, I think somewhere, the take for someone that AI will be there, but there will always be someone making the AI and using the AI will
Yeah.
not, like, it's very difficult. You'll be like, do this. Like, it's like you have to make it to be able to do it. You have to give it context to be able to do it, and somebody has to give the right context to be able to do it.
Hmm.
Somebody has to, or somebody has to either also analyze what it has given to be able to actually make it into something more feasible. Again, it is always, I now I take it as it's always as a co-worker working
Hmm.
alongside you, not someone who is going to replace you.
Exactly. Like I see so many interesting roles out now, about like being a great prompt writer, for example, right? Because to your point, like the output you get from it is only as good as your prompt. Or I'm seeing now like a lot of companies having roles like, instead of just like search and engine optimization, now they're thinking about like Gen AI optimization, right? Because as our human behavior is shifting toward maybe like asking AI more questions. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I think like we need to stay curious. We need to learn and use these technologies, and then really like not lose sight of our human centricity and solving the real problems. Those, because the problem is still the same. I want information. I want to get it as fast as possible, and I want it to be as accurate as possible, right? Like in that SEO context, for example. So,
No, fully agreed. And I think, again, what you said is really right. The problem will always stay the same, whether AI does it or you do it, or whether you do it with AI, right? It will always stay
mhm,
the same. That is really interesting. Okay, so let's go forward with the next question that I have
mhm.
is, so you have transitioned not just across roles, but also across different industries from tech, telecom, finance, and more. How do you adapt your approach when kind of jumping into a completely new space?
Do I adapt my approach? I don't know. I think my approach has always remained the same, no matter what role I've stepped into or what industry I've stepped into, which is to enter that role or enter that new industry always with curiosity first and expertise second, especially for someone like me who's like shifted into roles I had no prior experience in at all. Like I went from being a developer to managing a call center. Like what do I know about that, right? So I feel like for me, and then from call center to marketing, like it's always been, I've learned a lot on the job. And so I think because of that, I I the approach I bring into each new role is just to try to understand this space. Like every industry, every role has all of its own acronyms, it has its own language, its own culture, its own rhythm. So I think my approach has always been, I try to understand what matters most to the people there. What are they trying to solve? What's blocking them? What do they care about? What are the big things in this industry? Like all of those kinds of things. Um, really try to understand the space, try to learn as much as I can, and not to let myself, like to rely, like remind myself that I'm also bringing a lot to this role. Even though everything in this space is new to me and I'm Googling things in the background, while I'm on calls and trying to sound knowledgeable. But that I also bring a lot to the role, which I think is something sometimes we lose sight of when we're in new situations. Um, but yeah, so I think my approach has always stayed the same. Just like try to go into it with a learning mindset, get to know the people, the teams, like all of it.
Interesting. And I'm really relating to that because as I'm joining for a new role, I haven't joined yet, but I'm still joined in the Slack and I was reading a lot of conversations. The messages kept coming and a bunch of them are going over my head. So I was like, what's happening? But then and what you said is so true that we lose the sight of what we actually bring to the role. Technically, why actually we got hired. Obviously, we have the potential. We actually bring a bunch of things to the role, and we are in the new space. So always having that learner's mindset to make sure we are so curious that we learn ins and out of the field that we get into, and we understand it so good that eventually we become really good at it as well. So that
Mm-hmm.
is really interesting pointers that you put out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you're someone like me, just when you are comfortable and you know everything, you put yourself in a new situation where you're like, I gotta learn everything again, all over again.
True. True. Makes sense. And I think that is what makes us grow. because that is what is challenging to us. That is what is pushing us to our limits, right? We are always trying to be pushed to the limits to make sure that we are able to uh, adapt and always stay curious as well, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. So the next question is more around kind of like many people feel that they have been stuck in one identity, be like marketer, developer,
Mhm.
or anything else. What advice you would give to someone who's kind of itching to pivot but fears that they are too late or they are not enough qualified?
Well, based on our earlier conversation, I don't think you're ever going to be fully qualified for anything, right? Like everything's always evolving. I think it's never too late. And you just have to go for it. Like if you wait to be perfectly qualified for something, you're going to keep missing opportunities. So my advice is just go for it as long as it makes sense for your story. And I hate to like use the word story so much in this podcast right now, but I just think it's so powerful. Oops. When I think back to all the changes that I've made, like even just talking to you today and telling you the path that my career has had, there is a story that's connecting all of it together, right? There is a through line. Like for me, that's people leadership. And I think for others, you just have to, every time you look to make a pivot, every time you look to make a change, as long as you're clear about your story, about why you're doing it, then you can talk about it in the context of that story. You can position yourself in the context of that story. And every pivot will make sense because you're telling like the right story around it. So I think that's the important piece here is to make sure that it makes sense for your story. Recently I came across, I can't remember where I saw this, but it resonated with me so much. And now that's how I'm introducing myself. I regret actually not using it at the beginning of this podcast to introduce myself using this title, but I heard someone say they are a slash careerist. And I have never identified with something more as I did with that title because I think for a lot of us, we're not just a developer. Like, I'm not just a designer, right? I'm like designer slash writer slash developer slash leader slash, like, we're all many things. And so I've actually kind of started using that as a title for myself. Like I'm like telling people I'm a slash careerist. So yeah, don't let titles or other people or what, we're not all just one thing. I think all of us, even if you stay in the same industry, even if you stay in tech, you probably have worked on different kinds of projects, different industries, like you've been in different situations, right? And all of that, you're not just a developer. You're a combination of all of those things. You're a problem solver. So I think we just need to kind of like tell the right story around all of that.
Interesting. And I think I totally agree. And I think the slash careerist path is very booming now. Like if you really think about it, nobody wants, like, people are hiring, but let's say a lot of people would want to hire people who have multiple skill set rather
Mhm.
than one. Like even I remember I made a career reel and that really helped me get my story out. I don't want a job as a video editor or as a marketer, but it really pointed out I understand the audience and I know how to actually get that attention, right? So I think that is like an additional skill set that I have. I'll definitely use some parts of it maybe in my product design space, but uh, it's definitely something will make me stand out. And second, definitely something if somebody is like, I want a product designer, but if somebody comes with these extra skill set, like they are like a Swiss knife for me. So
Mhm.
I think that is quite interesting take with what you said, and that is really interesting. I think I really like how you said the slash careerist thing. Really interesting in terms of how it kind of, so that nobody even stucks to one identity, but also does not feel that they are bound to that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that is interesting. Okay, so the last question that I have is, you have you have also pursued a lot of personal development outside the traditional paths, like you did like alt MBA by Seth Godin and a lot of other things. How
Mhm.
important is the unconventional learning when transitioning careers today?
Unconventional learning? Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily a recruiter or a hiring manager, so, but my personal take is not, I don't know if it's everything. When I hire people, I rarely look at their education. I kind of look at, do they have the right mindset and attitude of somebody that I would like to have in my team? Like, do they have, like, I'm more interested in a learning mindset necessarily than a list of courses, I guess, you know? Like, will you continue to evolve in the role? Like, do you possess the right skills for success here? Are you good with like working with people, managing, complex situations, like things like that? Having said that, I think sometimes you do need some basic training on things, right? Um, but you're right. Like looking at my like personal development, I guess, roster, like I do have multiple degrees. I'm always taking, like I did, like you said, Seth Godin's AltMBA. I just recently completed um, another certification through like Chief Design Office School, which is like business learning for designers. I just love learning. I love school. I think that's probably like come through in this conversation. Like I'm just always evolving. I'm always learning. And so for me, it's been incredibly personally enriching. And I always learn things that I then bring back to my team or to my work. But has it been necessary for making shifts? I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, because I don't,
Interesting.
when I was hired to be a product design leader, I don't think the hiring manager said, you did alt MBA. You must have this role. Like I think, it's about more than that. But doing alt MBA was really enriching for me. Like it introduced me to interesting people from around the world, right? It inspired me to like be less like precious about my ideas. Like I'm so much more comfortable now just putting ideas out there, just like shipping things, right? Like I learned a lot from it that I'm bringing to my work. But yeah, it's not all about that.
No, totally makes sense. And I don't think it technically relates back to always getting a job or like a make or break factor to get a job. But
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe it links back to your mindset of always being curious.
Mm-hmm.
And it also links back to your mindset of always pushing your limits to grow, right? It always makes you be on your toes, always learning new things, meeting new people, having different perspectives, having amazing talks. I think all of this combined gives you a fuel to always kind of be uh, on the lookout for what's next, always kind of be on the lookout for how can I learn more and ingrain in my kind of mindset of how I work, right? Uh, I think that is something if I see a lot of companies look at being always curious, having that learner's mindset, and again, it does not ever directly links, but is always indirectly links to your mindset of being curious, always learning, always pushing your limits to kind of stay afloat, always being up to date with what's happening in the world, not sitting in silos. And I think that is that interesting take there.
That is that's so true. You're right. Yeah. I think one of the things I try to do also, just like in your resume, you try not to have major gaps in your career. I also try not to have major gaps in my education. So I've kind of like tried to like keep it moving, like every couple of years I'm doing something, I'm taking something. And it doesn't always have to be something big, honestly. And the world of education has changed so much now. You have so many free things even available to you, so many things online. But you're so right. As long as you kind of don't let a large gap like show up there, you're showing that you're keeping up and you're evolving, you're thinking. That is an excellent point.
True. Amazing. Okay. The last question that I have for the podcast is that you have had an amazing journey out there, from being a developer to trying different things, and you're still trying to kind of evolve what looks next for you, right? What would you say is one piece of advice if you were a young, curious person outside looking to figure out what's next for them? What's one piece of advice that you would give to them?
They're trying to figure out what's next for them.
Yeah.
I would say ask yourself what you would like your career to do for you. I think that question puts you in a position of power, and that's kind of a beautiful thing, like to be in that position and to ask yourself that question. It will help you with the story of your career as well. As designers, we have a lot of frameworks that we apply to our work and how we design things, how we get to know our clients, how to build empathy with our clients. I think oftentimes we don't apply that to ourselves. A lot of times we don't build that empathy for ourselves. So I would say get to know yourself, like get to know what's really important to you. What are the kinds of environments that you really thrive in? What are the kinds of things that give you energy? And go where the energy is, because that's where you're going to do really well. And that's going to propel you to even like better things. So spend the time getting to know yourself. Then, ask yourself, now that I know all of these things about myself, what do I need from my career? Like for me, I know I need to be in an environment where I'm always learning. I know I need to be in an environment where I'm working with people. I know like there's a few things that I know. And although I'm making shifts, I'm ensuring that each one is giving me those things. Like I'm going where the energy is. I don't want to put myself in a role, for example, where I'm sitting in front of a computer looking at a spreadsheet all day long. That's going to drain me and it offers me none of the things that I love, right? So get to know yourself, ask yourself what you want your career to do for you. And then you can kind of like start thinking about potential roles that give you that. My biggest piece of advice, though, is not to be so hung up on titles, because titles are so arbitrary. Like they're so, it's what HR thinks this role should be. I would say go for the roles that check off the things you had on your list, and where the leader is an amazing leader. So follow the leader. If you work for a leader who is awesome, they're gonna let you make this role, regardless of its title, be what you really want it to be, and then you'll grow and you'll learn and you'll shape it into what you want, and it will be amazing. So
Really practical and actionable advice. I think really, really, really great insight that people definitely can kind of take an action on. Uh, Amazing. Thanks a lot, Mo, for kind of coming on the podcast. It was really amazing to have you. Really interesting story, journey, insights that you kind of put it out there. And I think really helpful for the folks that who would be listening. I'll definitely link your socials in the description for anybody who wants to reach out to you. But again, thanks a lot for taking out time and coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. And yes, like please do add my LinkedIn. I would be more than happy to talk careers. I would be happy to connect with all other fellow slash careerists out.
Totally makes sense. Awesome.